The year is 1979, and Milton Bradley releases the Microvision, the first ever handheld video game console. The handheld market saw steady and continued yearly growth. In 1989, the Game Boy releases. Iterations go on to sell over 110 million units. 2001, the Game Boy Advance joins the scene and goes on to sell 81.5 million units. Then the boom of 2004. The DS and the PSP both combined for 234 million units sold. The handheld market could not be denied, yet it seemed to all but die with the 3DS and Vita. Relevancy stuck around thanks to the Switch's versatility as a hybrid console, but recent developments throughout the industry, in part due to the Switch's success, may suggest a handheld gaming renaissance is on the way. Welcome to this week's handheld and portable edition of the Good Game Bad Game podcast.
This is a song I wrote about the Good Game Bad Game podcast. Good Game Bad Game podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and with me is a man who dreams of a return to those sweet handheld times, so much so that he allowed himself to buy a PSP Go in the year 2023. I know we've already used it for an intro, but much like handheld gaming, this reference is relevant. Again, it's my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Milton Bradley, huh?
Yeah, how about that?
I never knew that.
Yeah, me neither, until I looked it up for this fucking intro.
Wow, well, it was worth it. I mean, I thought you were going to get to the end there and say, well, that's the show. See you next week. Man, that pretty much covered it.
I think I thought it was like a nice I thought it was a nice underhand toss into like exactly what we're talking about, and I thought it was fun to do like a investigative type intro.
Yeah, it was very much so like stuff you should know-esque.
Yeah, build up my ego. Yeah.
Very, very good. No, that was impressive. The bar is now high. Next week, you better be on your toes, because if it's not that good, I'm gonna rip you to shreds.
Listen, I think it'll be in instances like today where it works out very nice in terms of how I could set us up for what we want to talk about, or like the Baldur's Gate versus Starfield. I know I kind of hammed up that intro a little bit, but I'd say that next week we'll start with this week, and then I'll say what we're talking about. So,
well, hey, it's just impressive. Man comes back from vacation, refreshed, ready to work. You are an anomaly.
Hey, I do my best. Before we get into talking about the handheld stuff, real quick, tell me about your week in games, and more specifically, Go
ahead, just ask to rip the Band-Aid off.
Did you play Phantom Liberty at all?
No.
All right.
I didn't.
All right.
One, I genuinely just did not have time the past week. But I did have a toss-up at one point, because I thought I had about an hour or so to play a game. And I had the choice between Starfield and Phantom Liberty, and Starfield won, because I am finding myself a little bit anxious about getting back into Cyberpunk.
That's kind of fair.
So I'm like, I didn't start a new game. I haven't seen the 2.0 upgrade, and they're all saying you should just restart from the beginning. But the thing is, I don't have a whole Cyberpunk's worth of time to get into Phantom Liberty.
Yeah.
So I think we're just gonna jump into it at some point here.
That is what I did. I just jumped into it, and because I also saw like somebody say you should start a new game, or like if you were to, it would be like a totally different experience. And so it was definitely like, it was a thought that I had, but I kind of was in the same boat where it's just like, there's so many other games that are out right now that I'm already trying to play through that I can't possibly dedicate time to playing the entirety of Cyberpunk, or up to a certain point, just so I can enjoy the Phantom Liberty DLC in a more like, I guess you could say, natural manner. But with that said, like, just jumping into it I haven't really felt like super out of it, and I haven't touched the game since the next gen upgrade or update or whatever you want to call it that they did, and like I started it and basically played through it in like I don't know, one go, 1 month, whatever. Um, so I will just say that, but also I think they added like other side gigs and side missions through other updates. And so I will say that that part is like was confusing for me because I thought my map should be clear and I see these like side gigs and stuff and I can't tell if it's because I loaded a bad save where like I hadn't completed everything yet or if they're like new. And so that I spent I think 30 minutes trying to load a save that felt right until I finally got there and then was like, okay, I'm just going to go off of this one. And if I end up replaying a mission, I end up replaying a mission.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that makes me feel better. Um, I played it over the summer. Every now and then it's actually the only disc I like keep in my Xbox.
Yeah.
So every now and then I just hop in and do some side missions, and I can usually get back into it pretty quickly. So that makes me optimistic.
Yeah, and I think like you kind of have the benefit over me because yeah, you have at least touched it a little bit here and there. It was hard to get back into like actually playing Cyberpunk in the sense of like anytime you put down a game for how long and then try to go back to it's that I've definitely had to like dust off the cobwebs there, but that's a me problem, definitely not a game problem. The game is amazing, and I'm having a lot of fun getting back into it. And I feel like I've barely touched. I haven't even met Idris Elba yet. I'll say that. So whether it's because I haven't put in that much time, or if it's because I've been so focused on doing so much other stuff and just driving around and enjoying being in the world again, I can't tell. But I'm very excited to play more of it. I totally hijacked your update though. Anything else besides Starfield?
No, I had so little time this week. I barely even played Starfield.
Ugh, it's a shame. I'm very sorry.
It's a sad time to be alive. And now Forza's coming out.
Bro, don't even get me started.
It's so hard.
It is. It is. My current like deadline and what I need to get through 10/20 is my deadline because that's when Spider-Man comes out and I know I'm going to immediately play that. I need to get through Phantom Liberty. I want to try and get through Baldur's Gate, but I just don't know because I've seen some people say that they like finally rolled credits at like 200 hours and I'm just like, fuck me. And Sea of Stars, which I don't even think I've had the opportunity to talk about yet on this show, and I'm just honestly saving it for whenever we try to do a recap of all the amazing games this year. But I really want to get through that, and I think I just started chapter 3 in that, which is the final chapter, and so like I think I can do Sea of Stars and Phantom Liberty before Spider-Man, and then like try and just like fully devote my time to Baldur's Gate until Spider-Man comes out, but oh my god. And then you have the conundrum of like trying to stay on top of stuff so you don't get rusty for when you inevitably need to go back. What a time. When does Forza come out?
Early access is today.
Oh, rip.
Today as of this coming out, not today, like you and I are recording today. Yeah. I do not have early access. I think it's kind of the same deal where you have to like buy the season pass.
Yeah.
There's just no point. There is a point if you're more dedicated to playing video games than I am. As much as I really want to play it because I'm like seeing it on Twitter and it looks so good, like so good. But I need to still beat Forza Horizon, which I had early access for, and now Starfield and Cyberpunk. And Pikmin.
Yeah.
It's too much. Too much.
A good problem to have, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right.
It is.
Well, it's I think we're about to have another potentially good problem, which is this topic that we have before us today, which is this potential renaissance that's happening with handheld gaming. We've been kind of teasing this, how we've wanted to talk about the PlayStation Portal for a bit, and then Apple had their event that talked about the new iPhone and the gaming capabilities that's going to have, which, you know, I want to say it's a yearly occurrence where you and I say, is this Apple finally getting into gaming? And then we kind of say that and then never talk about Apple and gaming until right now. And then there's also all these rumors about the Switch 2, which you and I had the talk I don't know, early September about like what we would love to see from a Switch 2, and now it seems like we might have a little more information on what's there, and the I guess validity to the rumors that it could be coming soon, because there's another rumor that kind of boosts that rumor, which is that like people have potentially had hands-on experiences with it at Gamescom. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and the realization is kind of we're about to be playing games in our hands again. And this isn't like really all that new, because obviously we have the Switch, we have the Steam Deck, and didn't was it Asus that just also did another handheld device? Am I remembering
Asus
that right?
has one. I think Lenovo's just came out, and Lenovo's is actually like the same format as a Switch. Like the two um, controllers pop off the side.
Yeah.
Um, it's actually got some cool features in terms of what you can do with those. Not motion, but other things. When we have time to talk about it, if we ever decide to, we can.
I mean, I think like now's kind of the time to talk about it, in the sense of like, is handheld gaming back, right? Like, is this circa, what did I say, 2004, where we had the DS and the PSP, and handheld gaming was at an all-time high? Can gaming, I think the issue with the 3DS and the Vita maybe is that it didn't feel like as good of an experience as playing your PS4, or I guess the 3DS's console competition was technically the Wii U. Um, but you get what I'm saying there, where it's like, are you actually getting as good of an experience, or is the issue that there was such a disparity between the two that now it's finally like handheld's been able to catch up? What we're able to do in a non-console situation is fairly comparable to the console, that yeah, we could see a more of a lean in to handheld again.
Yeah, I think expectations are the same but framed differently, if that makes sense. Because I remember when like the 3DS and the Vita came out, it was like, oh my god, it's uh, a PS3 in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and maybe by the end of the generation, it'll be close to like a PS4. And it wasn't quite that. I mean, I would say it was at least at the same level as a PS3. Um, but there was just like this weird criticism behind it that it just wasn't exactly what people wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I think it's something as dumb as if it had like an L2 and an R2 button, it probably would have had a different um, fate. So, but instead they did like the touch screen, the camera, the back touchpad, and they just gimmicked the hell out of it. I don't think people quite bought that.
Right.
And same with the 3DS. I mean, I put a 3D screen in for some reason.
That you do use.
I personally use it. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but I am not as plain as most people.
I guess it's just I don't know if it's just that the generation of gamers, the current generation of them, is like on the move again, in that sense, that like now having something that is semi portable or fully portable is of benefit. I
Well,
think,
people want to be back in office, so
and so they have to bring their Switch with them, because they can no
right.
longer sit on their couch and just keep Teams open.
Yeah.
Um,
Not speaking from
I
experience,
was gonna
but
say, is that too on the nose or just enough?
Anyway,
um, yeah, like, is that kind of the idea behind pushing on this? And I think the other interesting thing is that like the Switch is still it's still dockable, right? Like you can still set it up like a console and play it on a TV. It just has the ability to also be on the go. And like I would imagine most people with a Steam Deck, and I could be wrong about this, but I would imagine most people have a PC that is capable of playing some games at the very least, that they had a Steam library built up. And maybe that's skewing now more towards people who like are looking to get into PC gaming and are now picking up a Steam Deck as a viable way of doing that. But you get what I'm saying there, where it's like you almost use it as this like accessory item to the main item that you have. And I think the PlayStation Portal is like the clearest instance of that, because you can't even really, you can be on the go with the PlayStation Portal, but it plays much more like you're in the same area as the console. You're just playing it in your hands instead of uh, on the TV.
right. Or you're leaving your PS5 at home and traveling to your parents' house in Bumblefuck, Pennsylvania for Thanksgiving and praying that their 3 megabit internet can hold up.
Hold up the remote play.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, like you can do that technically with the Portal, right? And I'm really excited to try that.
I told you it was going to happen.
Wow, that is obnoxious.
For anyone wondering, we're recording on Wednesday the 4th, which is the notorious the safety broadcast system is going to blare to every device in the world.
I wonder if the mic picked that up.
Oh, there's mine.
Oh, so you could hear mine? Fantastic. Fantastic. Jesus Christ. I am excited with the Portal.
I could hear yours, and I thought I got away with it because I keep that shit off on my phone. I don't care if a meteor is coming. What am I gonna do?
Let it take me out.
If a nuke is coming, yeah. And that was actually on my old phone oh, there's another one.
Oh. This is a great.
Oh my god, that was hilarious. So, as I'm telling the story about how mine is off, so my old phone got 2 notifications, one in English and one in Spanish, and it is on mute, by the way. It still went through, and my phone, my regular phone, which I have all that shit turned off on, I did not get the English one, at least not yet. But I did get it in Spanish, which is incredibly helpful.
This is great. I'm definitely leaving all this in.
It's for posterity,
of course. What I was saying is, I am excited to try out the Portal, but and try out the whole like playing it on a different Wi-Fi connection than
my god,
one that my console is actually on. But it does feel much more like
what? I'm turning my fucking phone off. Holy shit! Holy shit! I've gotten 4 of them on one device. All right, everything. Hold on. Sorry, give me 5 seconds. I'm turning fucking everything off.
Sounds good.
United States government, you're not fucking helping anybody. Get out of our fucking hair.
Woo. Oof, this is good stuff. It's great content.
You're just crying wolf. This has been in the news for like a week now. And if I were Russia, I'd be nuking the United States right now.
All right, hang on now. That I might need to cut out. No, I'm gonna leave that in. Do we think we're good? Do we think we're safe?
Unless my laptop's gonna start doing it, My phones are off.
I will
My
fucking
watch.
cry if my
If I,
headphones start blaring the
oh yeah.
emergency broadcast.
And the next device that does it in my house is getting thrown at the wall.
Whew. All right. What I was saying is the Portal. I'm excited to try it out. I'm excited to see how that whole thing works. But the fact that you're not playing the games natively on it like you are on the Switch or on the iPhone or on any of these like new, all of these new gaming pad type things are all. Was it Logitech that was also cloud?
Yeah. Um, Cloud and it was Wi-Fi only.
Yeah.
So
So,
there wasn't an option for
but
LTE.
the Steam Deck allows you to play like offline, like natively, all
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, I mean that's a PC and anything like that, the Asus uh, portable console, I guess, and the Lenovo one, they're
right.
all just PCs.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's interesting that, you know, not only is it the, um, the big three, I'll say, getting into handheld, and it's tough to say that PlayStation is getting into handheld with the Portal. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. Um, it just doesn't like feel exactly right to me to like call it, but it is, I guess, going to be a handheld device. But what I'm getting at is it's not the big three that are just doing it. It's you have like Steam, made a piece of hardware to be able to play games on the go, right? And Asus and Lenovo and Logitech, even though it's handheld, not necessarily on the go. But you get what I'm saying. Um, and I just think it's really interesting that there seems to be a lot of intrigue, interest, buy-in, all that into getting back into handhelds.
So here's a question for you. This is relatively new news. Meta partnered with Xbox to have Game Pass on like the Meta Quest, which is
Mm-hmm.
the portable wireless VR unit. Do you consider that in this portable gaming race? Like obviously not necessarily handheld, but portable gaming.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, yes. Now, granted, I see portable gaming as can I play it in the car, on the bus, on a train, on a boat? Technically, you could do that with a VR headset. Um,
Or you could technically do it with an Xbox Series X too.
yeah. Um,
If you're really committed.
so, it's like again, it's kind of like an outlier almost, like it's like a fringe because the the main thing with portability is, and I think like the sense that most think about it for my actual use case, outside of recording a Weezer concert on my 3DS, is like, can I take it home and not need to like back to my parents, and not need to worry about like lugging the entire console or having to necessarily worry about like an internet connection at all times, things like that.
Mm,
Um, and so yeah, I think like yeah, you can consider like, and that's huge, right? Like Game Pass being on the what is it, the Meta Quest?
yeah.
That's like pretty huge news, and yeah, to the fact that it's yeah mobile or easily transportable and on the go is I think yeah another uh, sign that points towards this mobile handheld on the go type gaming. Portable. That was the word I was trying to get back to.
Yeah. I think my definition is like if you don't need any like external AV peripherals, like you're not lugging around a screen.
Mm-hmm.
I guess with the exception being like the X screen on Series S, because that's technically like physically attached.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hey, guess what? My watch did get it. Call twice. There's
Shout out.
Spanish.
Shout out to your
Okay.
watch smashing against your wall right now, I guess.
I it's the only option. It's I have no way to dismiss it.
Oh my god.
All right, watch is turning off. They
Um
picked a hell of a day.
yeah, no, I think like to that sense it's like a console needs to be plugged into a wall. It needs to be plugged into to an external screen. Handheld device doesn't need that. They obviously need to be charged, but like yeah, you can take it off of a power source and expect it to continue to run and play games for at least what 2-3 hours
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair
safely.
assessment.
Yeah, like I consider that as like a pretty big key into it all as well. um so yeah, I mean the recent news outside of these other companies getting into it is all at once now we're getting inundated with Switch 2, could it be coming, right? Is it right around the corner? What's it going to fully look like? How powerful is it going to be? We get the iPhone news that iPhone's going to be able to run natively, not through any sort of cloud streaming or anything like that. What were the main games? It was like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil Village, Death Stranding, and Assassin's Creed Mirage, I think were like the big four that they pointed to.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming the library doesn't just stop with those four. I'm assuming they were just calling those out as like, look at this, it's impressive.
Right. It is.
It is. No, it definitely is.
To kind of go back to your point at the opening, it seems like every year, and you said this, but every year Apple does something with gaming in their iPhone event. It's like, all right. But this year, like, I think it's to be kind of taken seriously.
Oh, I mean, definitely.
I mean, the fact that it can play Mirage, which isn't even out yet. I mean, it's a current generation game. And you can get a backbone for it as a controller. And then you kind of have the Switch interface. And then I saw, now that iPhones have USB-C, people are plugging it into monitors and attaching Bluetooth controllers and are playing it like a console.
Yeah, I mean, I forget who it was, but I know somebody was showing off their rather crazy setup to be able to get their iPhone playing on their TV. But yeah, they were doing it with a controller and everything. There looked to be zero input lag or anything from the controller to the device to the TV, from what I could tell, at least. It's impressive. It's definitely impressive.
I kind of think that's what I'm most excited for in terms of upcoming portables, like seeing that actually come to fruition. And we're going to see phones over the next couple of years actually become consoles because it's one less thing you have to travel with.
Right.
Obviously you don't get the biggest thing about the Switch, which is the library. And also kind of like the party games, you're probably not going to get the motion control if that's even something a lot of people use. So I feel like Nintendo will always have that niche. But in terms of stuff that's coming up, I think what Apple's doing is really impressive.
Definitely. And when you consider the fact that this is general speak, but a new phone basically costs you $1,000 probably, right?
The Google Pixel 8 Pro today was $1,999. So yeah.
So that, and again, that might be a slight generalization. Obviously, I know you can get a new phone for cheaper, but
right.
Let's just say, for argument's sake, that it's going to be $1,000, and most people probably upgrade their phones, if not yearly, because I know there are plenty of people who do that. And obviously, companies are putting out a new phone just about every year.
Right.
Most people are probably in like a typical like 2-year contract, maybe 3-year contract, depending. So the fact that you're already spending $1,000, the typical lifespan of a console, which is sole function is to play games, obviously your phone is used for communication, and you need it for the most part in today's society and day-to-day life. The fact that it's going to have this, like, I'll say, added benefit when it's, the cost up front for it is so much already to begin with. Yeah, it's definitely huge news. I agree. And it'll just be a question of how far are they going to lean into it. And I think I think from what they showed off in terms of, like, this is impressive, right? The 4 games that they said are going to be able to play natively on it shows that they're leaning. Like, to me, that shows they're leaning fairly hard. To be able to run those games natively on the device, and they're going to look good and all that stuff is huge. So
Yeah, agreed.
um and then, yeah, like, obviously Nintendo nailed it. Nintendo is very clearly the reason handheld gaming has maintained any sort of relevancy post the 3DS and Vita landscape that we were left in, right? Because the Switch comes out in 2017. What did I say? 3DS and the PS Vita were 2011, right? So
Yeah, that sounds right.
what, 2014, 2015, we were probably at the point of saying handhelds are dumb. We don't like handhelds anymore. We don't care about handhelds as a general population, right? So you'd be crazy to get into the handheld market. And 2017, the Switch comes out, and it helped the handheld market tread water, I would say. And then the boom of it, the clear indication that no, handheld gaming isn't dead, and there was mobile gaming and stuff like that. So I think that was also probably helping to keep it alive. But from a true console standpoint, I think the Switch was definitely there.
Yeah, the only competition was gaming laptops at that point.
Right. Um, Nintendo gets all the props. Is really my long-winded way of saying that, for keeping handheld alive and allowing us to even have this conversation, right? Because no Switch, I don't think we see any of this other stuff.
And look at the frameworks for all these other, uh, you know, I would say, aside from the PlayStation Portal and the Logitech G Cloud or whatever it was called.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at these handheld gaming PCs, and they're all just following the same format as the Switch. Just a big slab. Sometimes you can remove the controllers. You can plug it into a TV.
Mm-hmm.
That is the framework. Uh, and we even saw with some of the documents that were leaked in the Xbox case that they were considering, if not still considering, a handheld. And guess what? It was a tablet with removable controllers.
Mm-hmm.
So they created the framework, and I think it's got staying power.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, if anything is proving that, it's the year 2023 that we have all these new devices, and the Switch 2, is on the horizon, which is only going to, I think, help keep it going. AAA games are natively playable on your phone and have great visuals, and even Sony has decided to kind of like dip their toe back into what I would say, again, 2015, 2016 was seen as probably an extremely risky and potentially stupid market to try and get back into.
Yeah,
it's just nuts. It's just nuts. And it's like, again, it's all thanks to Nintendo taking this, like, risk on doing the Switch, which they did out of necessity. So
I'm just really, really curious to see how devices like the Portal play out.
And I kind of want to,
Um,
I kind of want to dive into it more, right? Like, because it right? Like, I'm not crazy in thinking it's just so unique and almost too different from what the landscape is shifting to.
it's just hard for me to separate it from being a peripheral.
Right.
I see these things and I think Wii U,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously that didn't go well. And it's because, at the time people were like, oh, I wish I could just take, this Wii U tablet or gamepad, whatever they called it. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I could take it with me
Mm-hmm.
and play all my games here, but I can't. I just and that was what did we say over 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that the landscape has really gotten much better.
Right.
Obviously, it's doable now. I wouldn't say it was doable 10 years ago, but you still need to have internet connection in two places, and both have to be incredibly reliable. I would
Right.
say more reliable than most places in the United States can handle.
That's a probably, yeah, a fair assessment. Again, I'm gonna try. Like, I'll push it to its limits. Right. I need to travel for work, so I'll try. Can you take it? Can you take it with you and use it on hotel Wi-Fi to connect
Right.
to your console, however many states away, and continue playing? It'll be
I guess
interesting.
at the end of the day, it was what 200.
It was $200. Yeah.
So I at least it's not $300 or $400, which I think it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not because I think it's worth that, but because that's just the market we're in right now. Is that companies will charge as much as they can until people either don't buy it right away, or I don't know. Nobody's buying PSVR 2, and I haven't seen a price drop on that yet. Um, and so it's kind of a low, and not that $200 isn't a lot of money, but it's a lower risk uh, experiment, I guess I'll call it right now, than some other options. I mean, that Logitech one was 350, I think, if you bought it
Mm-hmm.
early. And that's just not for a device that is dependent on services. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, that device should be $100.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, the way I looked at it when pre-orders finally went up, I did rush just in case, but it was very
there-
funny to know the difference because uh, I did not have a queue or a waiting line to get to the pre-order for the Portal, which I think said a lot.
yeah,
I have since seen that, like, in Japan, pre-orders have gone out of stock,
well, it's
which
a much bigger market there.
I was gonna say is not surprising to me. Um, but yeah, so um, I went for it immediately. One, because I'm definitely a PlayStation fanboy, and also um, I'm just so intrigued by this thing. And maybe $200 for something that intrigues you is steep. But the best case scenario is that it's a $70 um, it's a $70 controller that has a $130 screen in the middle of it that I can sit on my couch or sit at my desk while I'm supposed to be working, um, and play games, within my hands and not need to necessarily be on one of the TVs or um, any sort of setup like that. Or I can lay in bed upstairs and play it.
Right.
And honestly, that's worst case, and that's a pretty good use case that I'm definitely going to use it for regardless. So, um, but I wonder how many people this is good for, and I think, like, your your base already is bad from the viewpoint of, like, it's you have to already have a PS5. It's dependent on that.
Right.
You can't get somebody who already has a Series X who really is interested by play PlayStation games and sees value in PS Plus and the library that is available there, um because they also need to have a $500 console already. So yeah, I'm just curious to see what the and I think it's a little over a month away with release date. I think, could be wrong about that, but I'm just really
Oh wow.
interested to see what the
Yeah.
general, the general population's response to it is once they actually have their hands on it. I'm curious to see what my thoughts are. November 15th. is the release date. So yeah.
It would be if Sony had the infrastructure and they had a good cloud streaming platform. I mean, for me, it would be incredible if I could buy that and then stream like Spider-Man 2 and not have to buy a PS5.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, is it risky or dumb to make a device like this that can't play games either natively or yeah, on the cloud? That you have to have a device already, a console that has the game downloaded on, that you then connect to that console to play the game. Is that kind of a dumb thing to make in the current landscape of mobile handheld portable gaming that we're seeing currently, you know?
Yeah. Um, Man, it's hard to say. And it could be that they, really built this for uh, the Japanese market or the Chinese market or the whole Asian market because that's
Mhm.
again really the demographic. And they're just like, okay, well let's ship it to America too. We'll do less units, but um, yeah, it's just very very strange. I'm sure it's just a really good money grab for them.
But is it? Cuz that's the other thing. How do you can't tie software sales to this thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like how much does it cost to make a portal?
I imagine it can't be that much.
That you would have to be like you can't possibly sell this thing for a loss or else it just seems like a really dumb idea to me.
No, it's certainly not going to be a loss. I mean, the screen is not that impressive.
Right.
Um, they didn't have to really do any R&D for the controller. It's just a dual sense.
Yep. 100%.
Um, and I imagine they have a manufacturing stream that is using the same parts than has been for the past 3 years, but they have that worked down to quite a low cost per unit. Um, and I can't imagine they're spending that much money. So the way I see it is they're like, oh, okay, we have how many million people who have a PS5. Maybe we can get 30 to 40% of these people to spend an extra $200. And there you go.
Yeah.
And maybe it's an R&D metric for something that Sony wants to do in the future.
And that I can definitely get behind, right? I can definitely get behind using this as a way of testing the waters for something else further down the line. Completely get that.
Mhm.
I just wonder, is that what's happening? Um, and so it's like one of those things where it's like in the vacuum of just quickly looking at it right now, there's a lot that doesn't make sense about it. Again, and that's just solely basing it off of the current landscape that we're seeing, where you can play games natively and you can play them without a connection of any sort, stuff like that.
And I think a lot of people's hidden desire, and we kind of saw this as soon as it was announced, people kind of broke into it, is technically Sony could open it up to emulation.
Hmm.
So maybe it's okay right now, because we're not ready, you can just stream your PS5. But in 6 to 9 months, we're going to push out an update, and now you can access PS1, PS2, uh, maybe PS3, probably pushing it, but PSP and probably Vita games locally on this thing.
That would be that would be amazing, right?
I mean, I would buy one. I don't have a PS5, and if they did that, I would probably buy one.
If you can tie it that like if you're a PS Plus Premium or whatever the highest thing is that gives you access to PS1, PS2, PSP games and PS3, but you have to stream those. But if they opened that up, brilliant.
Yeah, do it all locally. I would likely buy one at that point.
And that's the thing that's so crazy to me is the fact that that's bare minimum to me. You're not even able to play current games. I mean, You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about only being able to natively play old games.
Yeah, and this thing's not running PS5 games locally. Probably not even PS4.
Right. And I think that has a base that, yeah, more people would be like, yeah, okay, I see it. And then you add in the fact that, yeah, you can remote play it with your PS5, and I think that's huge.
Yeah.
At that point. But yeah, I just find it like so interesting to kind of go with this. So maybe, yeah, maybe the way of thinking about it is like this is for something further down the line. This is just like a concept to begin with. You know, we see this in tech constantly, right? If you're an early adopter to something, you either pay a premium or you receive a shit device or bad software or whatever, right? But it's to eventually bring out something newer and better based around the general concept or idea of that initial thing. So who knows?
Yeah, that's why pay people to product test when people will pay you. That's the model.
Right. 100%. Um so I guess I know we're kind of somewhat coming up on time, so I don't want to like get too crazy into anything else, but I guess just generally speaking, we see gaming go potentially different routes, right? You've got like VR, right? We've got consoles, we've got PC gaming. Um, we've had handhelds in the past, and now again, main thing we're talking about is this potential renaissance. Do you see handhelds dominating again, much like the original DS and PSP era? Or do you think it's always going to be not necessarily an accessory, but a second thought, a second device to have, a nice to have? What are your thoughts?
My initial instinct is it's probably not going to be more than a nice to have. Um, at least in the short term. We think about what has leaked for what Xbox is looking at for the next console. I'm not talking about the handheld, I'm just talking about the console.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's safe to say at some in the next generation there's going to be some degree of processing that's not handled natively. So we're looking at the potential of the hardware that you're actually owning in your house being way less sophisticated in terms of like compute power
Mm-hmm.
than they are today. In that case, I think you could take your pick, or everything will go to like the Switch model where you have a docking bay, or you know, who knows in what is it, 5 years, what the interface will be, but everything is essentially a Switch. Um, I could see that being realistic, but I just knowing the gaming, I don't know, knowing the gaming market, I feel like people will always want the big, hefty. This thing can just like play whatever game I want locally.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I feel like we'll get somewhere in between like the end of or the PSP era and like what they wanted for the Vita era, in that um you have your PS3 and you also have a PSP, and they're two like you're not trying to play PS3 games on a PSP.
Right.
Um but I don't think we're going to get to a point where people are going to be developing games solely for portable consoles
I
other than mobile.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. I think like I think the real question will come down to can handheld gaming provide a unique enough experience to stand out against the console? or you make a hybrid type situation, which again, like you said, in 4 or 5 years, or you could even just call out 10 years down the road. We have no idea what like the technology landscape will look like and how much you can pack into a small device and stuff like that. So who knows? And it's
Yeah.
somewhat foolish to try and predict where technology will go. But I think that's kind of the main thing, right? Or else, if you're not providing a unique enough situation and it's not a hybrid situation, and I'm calling out basically the portal, you know, to me, that is the clearest instance of that is a nice to have. That is not a need in any way whatsoever. But I think back, and maybe it's nostalgia, the PSP was enough of like a need to have, right? Like I gotta have the PSP because it is different enough from the PS3. It's not just you're playing PS3 games. Um,
I mean, we look back at our habits when we were younger. I mean, I would say we probably played portable consoles more than we played regular, hook up to a TV consoles for a number of years.
yeah, yeah, and I would say like even like long term, you're probably looking at like what was probably like, but if you're talking like pre PS4,
Yeah.
um you're probably looking at like a 50-50 split at least, where like 50% of gaming, I can say pretty confidently 50% of my gaming was probably done handheld, if not
Hmm.
more, but I can easily say 50% was. um yeah, it just had such a stronghold and such like staying power. So for it to have this fall off to just come back has actually been really nice to see. Because there is something about playing a Switch handheld that kind of just feels right, feels like gaming of old.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose we'll see. It's funny to go to family events and seeing people playing on like Steam decks. Um, After, for so long, people were just kind of messing around on their phone
Mm-hmm.
to kill time or to even bond with people, I guess. I don't know. Um, I'm biased, of course. I'd rather see people on game consoles than on TikTok, but uh, there was just certain. I was just at one recently, and somebody was playing a Steam Deck, and just like somebody watching over their shoulder, and just like the nostalgia of that
oh,
scene.
oh, your friend breathing in your ear because they're watching you
Yeah.
play. Oh, there's nothing worse than that memory. um, no, yeah, literally the cruise I was on, there was somebody the one night was in one of the bars, just had like headphones, like wireless headphones in, and was playing on, I think it was a Steam Deck.
Amazing.
And I was just like, hell yeah. Like low key, I want to be you. So then I went back, grabbed my Vita, and sat down next to him. No, yeah, it is funny to see, right? Like it is funny to see that it very easily could have been written off as a fad to try and do it, but no, like people are in on it. Um, and so it'll be interesting to see what that means, circa next consoles, stuff like that.
Yeah. Or even some surprise over the next couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm just freaking excited for this Switch 2 to stop being a rumor and to just finally know about it. And somebody, I forgot where I was seeing this, might have been Tom's Guide. Is that a site? Am I making that up? Let's
Tom's Guide,
see.
yeah.
They, I believe, pointed out that it was October of 2016 when Nintendo announced the Switch, which was releasing in March of 2017. So, who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Um,
Um, and we know at least Xbox was thinking about it.
mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to see if they got to the prototype stage and what that looks like, or if they're just going to let third party keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.
Exciting time to be alive.
As always, we got tech, we've got games, we got all kinds of great stuff. All right. Job well done. Solid episode.
Got through everything. Many trials during this
Yeah.
episode.
Many alerts. I
Many phone
received
calls.
one. You received 12.
80.
But hey, we made it through. We saw it through to the end. And so did you, dear listener. Thank you so much for listening to us talk about handhelds and how much we want them to be back. As always, if you could leave us a review or rating, whichever it is, wherever you listen, it would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you're, I never say this, but like make sure you're following or subscribed, or so you get the notification. Sometimes 5 minutes late, sometimes a day later, but I promise you, it does come out on all podcasts at 5 a.m. on Thursdays and on YouTube at 9 a.m. But I don't know how notifications work. But make sure you're looped in there. And the best thing I think you could do, I know Mike would really appreciate it if you did it, is to share this podcast with a friend and get them listening and get them subscribed and all that stuff. Other than that, that is where we'll leave you. Until next week, goodbye.